This is an analysis from Alpha Business Media. Today, we're exploring a profound technological transformation, how Nepal went from a largely cash-based society to a digital finance frontier. And let's start with someone on the ground, Jyoti Banya. She's a poultry farmer, and for her, this isn't some abstract trend. Getting her farm's finances online has, in her words, taken a huge burden off her shoulders. Her story really gets to the human impact of this quiet but powerful revolution. Now, to really grasp the scale of this change, we first have to go back and look at the deep-rooted problem Nepal was dealing with for decades. We're talking about massive financial exclusion. I mean, look at this. The country's rugged terrain made it incredibly expensive to build physical banks. This created this massive urban-rural divide. In the cities, you had almost 3,300 bank accounts for every 1,000 people. But out in the rural areas, just 251. Millions of people were left without even the most basic financial services. And this geographic barrier was made even worse by a huge gender gap. Men had nearly twice as many bank accounts as women. A big reason for this was that women often didn't own the kind of assets, like land, that were traditionally required for collateral. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The government actually did a good job of getting more people to open bank accounts, but that revealed a critical paradox. Over a third of all these new accounts were just dormant. They were inactive, people had access, but they had no real day-to-day use for them. And this is the crucial point, this gap between having access and actually using that access. This created a vacuum. Fintech innovators realized they didn't need to build a whole new banking system. All they had to do was add a convenience layer on top of what already existed to make those dormant accounts suddenly useful. And the results of that strategy? Well, they were absolutely dramatic. In less than a decade, account ownership more than doubled. You suddenly had nearly 19 million people using mobile wallets. This really set the stage for a full-on digital payment revolution. So let's talk about that first part of the solution, the explosion of digital payments that pretty quickly became a part of daily life for millions of Nepalese. You know, you have to give a lot of credit to early pioneers like Isawa and Kalti. They faced this huge challenge of building trust in a society that ran almost entirely on cash. So what they do? They focused on education and offered simple, practical solutions for things people do every day, paying bills, topping up their phones, buying tickets. But the real key to mass adoption was this powerful feedback loop, a kind of flywheel created by a smart public-private partnership. First, the central bank created a single QR standard that everyone had to use. Then, a private company, PhonePe, built one unified network on top of it. This made it super easy for merchants to get on board, which, of course, made it way more useful for customers. And the result of that flywheel was an absolute avalanche of growth. Just look at these numbers. The number of places accepting QR payments grew by more than 8 times in just 3 years. Cashless payments became completely ubiquitous, everywhere from city markets to tiny village shops. Now, here's the really crucial point. Every single one of those digital transactions creates a data trail. This digital history of payments and purchases laid the foundation for the next, and arguably even more transformative wave of innovation, digital lending. This shift essentially created a whole new parallel system. You went from the traditional high-touch model of microfinance, which was slow but really understood local communities, to a new model that was all about data, speed, and the convenience of your mobile phone. This table does a great job of showing how all the pieces fit together. You have the wallets, like Sewa and Kalti, that create the data trail. You have the payment operators, like PhonePe, that build the unified infrastructure. And then you have platforms like Phone Loan that use all that data to provide credit. And the convergence of all these things creates this incredibly powerful new concept, digital collateral. Suddenly, a person's history of paying bills on time or consistently receiving money from a family member abroad can be used to prove they're creditworthy. This finally starts to solve that age-old problem of lending to people who are economically active but just don't have physical assets. So the progress has been truly impressive, but it's not a perfect story. There are still some pretty significant hurdles on Nepal's journey to becoming fully digital. The primary challenge is really a dual divide. First, you have low financial literacy. Over 40% of the population needs improvement, which makes it hard for people to make good decisions. And that's compounded by a gap in just basic digital skills, especially out in rural areas. Beyond literacy, you still have persistent infrastructure gaps, things like unreliable internet. But maybe the most fragile and important asset here is trust. If people start to worry about data security or fraud, it could undermine this entire ecosystem. That's something both regulators and companies have to manage very, very carefully. Yet, and this is what's so fascinating, experts like Neil Cross see these challenges as part of a unique leapfrog opportunity. Because Nepal isn't burdened with clunky old banking systems, it can potentially jump straight to more advanced AI-powered financial services. So this leaves us with a final, really provocative question. Now that the groundwork has been laid, can Nepal actually capitalize on this unique position and become a true global leader in inclusive digital finance? The answer seems to lie in building on three core pillars. First, embracing advanced technology like AI for things like credit scoring. Second, fostering a deep culture of both innovation and trust. And third, strengthening the cooperation between regulators, innovators, and international partners. That seems to be the path forward to a not just digital, but a financially accessible Nepal for everyone.